Welcome back, friends. A beautiful Tuesday. So, yesterday we did Guy Fawkes and Che Guevara, epic rap battles of history. Today we're going to be doing Winston Churchill and Theodore Roosevelt. A little background: these are two world leaders. Theodore Roosevelt's very famous. He was the head of the Rough Riders during the Battle of San Juan Hill. He also was the president of the United States, probably during one of the greatest expansions of not only America but American business. He was the famous trust buster. He coined the term "speak soft but carry a big stick," creator of the Panama Canal. He did a lot of different things, as well as he's one of my favorite presidents. He was a conservationist and other things like that. But then there's also Winston Churchill, another extremely famous character in world history. He was the Prime Minister of Great Britain, colonial secretary as well. He led England through the Second World War, as well as after being removed from office, he would retake office and preside as the first in the one of the longest stretch of conservative governments England would have. He would be Queen Elizabeth II's first prime minister and King George VI's last prime minister. And as I said, he would lead to the defeat of Nazi Germany under Adolf Hitler in World War II. So, yesterday I did a video on epic rap battles of history. I'm going to do one again today. As I said before, I said this in the closing last time, but I'm going to say it before this time. I don't get anything from this. I don't get any, of course I'll get views, I'll get the likes and things like that. I don't get any monetization. I don't get anything like this. Everything gets sent back to Epic Rap Battles of History. So, as always, I'm going to leave the link to all of that stuff in the description. This is a review. I'm not claiming ownership of any of this. I'm just reviewing it as a historian. So now that that's set aside, let's get on over to the video. So I'm going to do what we did last time. So while the song is playing, I'm going to be jotting down notes to discuss when I pause. So we're going to stop in between each person. We'll stop after Teddy finishes, then after Winston finishes, and so on. And then at the end, I'll say, who I thought won. And then you guys can comment and, tell me I'm wrong or whatever you'd like to do. So here we go. Theodore Roosevelt versus Winston Churchill.
Winston Churchill! Winston! Theodore Roosevelt!
Bully, a challenge! I love competition! Now where would I mount the stuffed head of a Winston? I'm into fitness, digging ditches through an isthmus, rough riding down a Cuban line. What's up, bitches? I keep my rhymes pure like my food and drugs. I'm an American stock, and you're the British Alma. I mean, for Christ's sake, look at that mug! At least grow a spruce mustache and cover part of it up! And let's face it, you're not all that great! You tossed away lives in Gallipoli like they were scraps off your plate! Your whole miserable country is the size of one state! I can see my way to running that without donning my pants! Yeah! Go toe-to-toe with me, you bloated drunk old man! Why don't you do-si-do on over to a 12-step program? I'll bust a trust fund lush with my American muscle! So walk softly over here and give my big stick a suckle! Pass me.
All right. That's a lot. Teddy hit a lot there. So first we're going to start with Bully. Bully, he's the one who created the bully pulpit. That's the idea of using the office of the president as a way to get things done. So again, the American system was founded. It was founded that the legislator made the laws, the judiciary interpreted the laws, and the executive enforced the laws. So Teddy was one of the first people to act. Well, I'm not going to call him Teddy. He actually did not like being called Teddy. So he either liked Theodore or how he would often be referred to as TR. So the way TR enjoyed when he was president, he liked to use the influence of the presidency to help pass certain legislations and certain procedures because he thought it was a way to get things moving a little quicker. That's why his era was so progressive and so quick. That's why he was known as one of the first progressives, because he was able to use his office to his advantage to help pass all these wonderful things. He says mount the head of a Winston. TR was a famous hunter. He liked to hunt. Growing up, I used to go to Sagamore Hill all the time. His estate on the Long Island North Shore. It's filled with animals. I know this isn't probably something modern day people we find abhorrent, but the reality was back then that was a sign of status. And it's crazy because when he went to Africa, he would actually hunt elephant. And when he killed an elephant, they told him, "No, you have to use everything from it," because originally he was just going to take the tusk, but he ended up actually taking its foot, and he made a garbage can, and the garbage can is actually still at Sagamore Hill today. Another thing he mentioned was fitness. He was actually very in shape. He was one of our first, I guess, health presidents. You wouldn't tell by pictures of him. He had a very rough childhood. He was actually born with asthma. And I think they actually mentioned that later in the episode, in the song. But he suffered with it, that his father actually thought smoking cigars would help him. But what ended up actually helping him was his mother sending him west to live with her relatives. And the fresh air and the hard work actually made him healthier, and actually is why he's known as one of our healthiest presidents, which leans into the next thing, his food and drugs. He was the founder of the FDA, the Food and Drugs Administration. Then he goes after Churchill. Now, Churchill, it's actually kind of funny because he embraced these things, talking about how Churchill wasn't the most good looking. Someone actually told Churchill once, they said, "Mr. Churchill, my baby looks like you." And then Churchill responded, "Madam, all babies look like me." Or another one was Gallipoli. Now, Gallipoli was bad. Gallipoli scarred Churchill's career for a while. It's actually what forced him to leave the British government in World War I and join a frontline regiment in the Western Front. Gallipoli was his idea to try to knock the Ottoman Empire out of the Great War, but it was a complete catastrophe. I'll do a video later on about the Gallipoli campaign. It was a catastrophe, though. It resulted in thousands of unnecessary, what were called Anzac, Australian and New Zealand soldiers dying for no reason, honestly. The attack did not have to happen. But he was the mastermind behind it as I think he was the vice chair of the Admiralty at the time. It was his idea, and it completely backfired. It is true, Great Britain is not that big. It is the size of a U.S. state. Not the state shown here, though. I think it's more closely with a state like New Jersey, I believe, is the one mostly compared, not Alabama or Georgia. But, again, another big thing about TR was the fact that he enjoyed fighting. There's actually a famous story about him when he was president. One of his, I guess you call it military liaisons, and him were sitting in an office in the White House, and he was like, "Fight me." And the guy was like, "I'm not going to fight you, Mr. President. You're the president. I'm supposed to be protecting you." And he's like, "No, stop being a wuss. Fight me." And after a little bit of coercing, TR convinced the man to fight him. And when they started fighting, the man had actually hit TR so hard in the head that he actually went blind in one of his eyes. The retinas got disconnected, and he went blind in his eye. And he wasn't even mad. He actually was really impressed that the man was able to successfully knock him out like that. And he lived with that the rest of his life. But it was that's an interesting fact that I kind of like, that they added his joy of fighting. Now, this is a great one. It talks about Churchill's alcoholism. He was a drunk. He was, I guess you would call a functional drunk. One of the famous quotes of Churchill. Churchill was very witty. And a great quote from him is, he was walking through London, and he was a little, he was drunk. And a woman said, "Oh, drunk again, I see, Mr. Churchill." And he goes, "Madam, I may be drunk, but you are ugly. Tomorrow, I will no longer be drunk, but you will still be ugly." So he was a high-functioning drunk, but it was it was a good jab at Churchill because he was an alcoholic. I think he had almost made them go bankrupt. I know he drank a lot when he was prime minister. And then finally, the big stick, give my big stick a suckle. That is referring to talk soft but carry a big stick. That was the American policy at the time, which was more so try to be negotiable, but also use the might of the American military behind you. So that was a good start for TR. Let's see how Winston's gonna do.
Me a cigar and a large glass of brandy. I'm about to take you out prematurely, like your family. I'm the Rhyme Minister, fresh in a hat and dinner jacket. You look like a mix of Epic Lloyd and a Pringles packet. I was saving the planet from an axis of darkness while you were back home opening national parks. You were born asthmatic, you're going to choke hard while I wake up every day and chain smoke cigars. I'll fight you on the beaches, I'll fight you on the beaches. Any way you want to fight, I'll fight you and I'll beat you, see? I might be battling you even though I'm toasted, but tomorrow I'll be sober and you'll still be roasted.
Yeah, so that was another good one. So at the beginning of that, it talks about how TR's family died when he was young. TR was married twice. His first wife died very early in his life. And his mother actually died around the same time. I think in his diary he said the light has gone from my life. So he did unfortunately lose a lot of family that way. He was a loving father. He had many children. This actually makes me think of, I think it was Alice Roosevelt, his daughter. He loved his daughter to death, but she was his father. She was her father. She was very rambunctious. She was very bully kind of a person. And there's a famous quote that it's like, I can either be president of the United States or control Alice, and I find the United States easier. So that's it's a sad reference to a hard time in his life. But Teddy did lose a lot of his family at a very young age. Then it goes on to Winston mentioning axis of darkness. Like I said earlier in the intro, Winston Churchill, all of the things you could use against him, he was one of the early people, him and his friend Anthony Eden, were the two men in the British government who predicted what was going to happen in Europe. Churchill had severe oppositions to Adolf Hitler even before he became chancellor. And Anthony Eden had been for years blowing the horn on people like Benito Mussolini and Hitler. So it's true. They were the wall. They were the ones who stood up while all the other Western powers, France, Belgium, Norway, all these countries fell under the might of the axis of evil. So that's a good point that he did. He did indeed do that. And it's fair to say that Teddy was instrumental in the creation of the National Park Services. He created Yellowstone. He created Yosemite. He knew what our natural beauties were, and he wanted to make sure we preserve them. If you ever go to the Walt Disney World Resort, there's a great in the American pavilion called The American Adventure, and it actually shows the scene of Teddy Roosevelt discussing how he does want to save the wildlife and the forest of America, because at this time is also when paper was very important, and you had logging camps that were knocking down a lot of our natural beauties here in the United States. So as much as he's trying to use that as a burn on Teddy, it's actually a very noble thing Teddy was doing. It also brings up Churchill's intake of cigars. Churchill smoked many cigars. Actually, this is going to tie into the Darkest Hour reference, which I'll explain, but Churchill smoked so many cigars that I'm kind of shocked he didn't have mouth cancer. When filming the movie Darkest Hour, Gary Oldman was actually trying to keep up with Churchill's cigar intake, and he actually got stomach poisoning. He got poisoned by it, and he had to get his stomach pumped. So that's an interesting fact. And then he says, I'll fight you on the beaches, I'll fight you on the beats. That's in reference to the famous Darkest Hour speech where he said, we will fight them on the beaches, we will fight them on the landing grounds, we will fight them with growing confidence in the air. This is referencing the disaster of Dunkirk and the British defeat on mainland Europe to the Nazi war machine. But it was also a show of defiance of against the Germans, saying we're not going to give up, and if we do give up, we're going to keep the fight going, even on the oceans, protected by the British fleet. It's a very great moment in British history. I would highly suggest go see The Darkest Hour. It's a great movie. And then finally, it does I might be drunk, but tomorrow you'll still be roasted. It's in reference to that quote I said before, that I may be drunk, but tomorrow you'll still be ugly. So, yeah, very good on Winston. He did not terrible. So, let's see what Teddy's rebuttal will be.
My parents died when they were young and it was morbid, but at least they didn't ditch me when they were alive like yours did. Oh shit, World War II soon? Well, Teddy's dropping bombs, so you best go, hadn't you too? You should be ashamed of your military honor. Everyone knows you're back at home, like thank God for Pearl Harbor. Don't worry, the U.S. will give you a pass. Just change your poster to keep calm and kiss my cousin's ass. Teddy Dad.
Yeah, so that's it. That's another good one. So Winston Churchill's family life was very difficult. Winston Sr., his father, actually I don't think his name was Winston Sr., but the senior Churchill, his father, was, not the kindliest of men. His mother was a American socialite, and, people kind of looked down on them for that. Oh, I apologize. People kind of looked down on them for that. That they were socialites, that they were not actual like British aristocracy the way most British politicians were. But Winston's father was very cruel to him. He wasn't a fan of him. He threw him into the service. Churchill actually fought in the Boer Wars in South Africa and was captured by the Boers. And apparently his father did not really care much about the situation. He said, "Oh well, let the boy learn," and things like that. He was a very harsh man. The World War II soon, that's referencing that it's 20 years in between the two wars happening. And also Churchill was the one that was sounding the bell saying, hey, this is happening. The Nazis are coming back. We need to do something. But yeah, that is a good one. And it also references the tube. During the Blitz, that would be the German attacks on London. It's called the German Blitz of London. A very common thing that was happening were the people of London, because they evacuated the children to the countryside, so the adults, what they would do is they would actually go into the subway system in London, and they would hide in there from the bombings because it was the best thing they had to a bomb shelter. It wasn't like people in the countryside who could afford to build bomb shelters in their yards or things like that. They had no other choice, so they would go down and hide in the subways to protect themselves from the German Blitz. The Pearl Harbor, thank God for Pearl Harbor thing, that's kind of true. Churchill had been lobbying Franklin Delano Roosevelt, as TR mentioned, his cousin, who became president. He was lobbying him to join the war, or at least openly support England. There's this famous story about the Americans wanting neutrality. At this time in America, things were very delicate. We didn't want to get involved in another European war. And also, FDR was holding on very, I don't want to say similarly, but the majority of his Congress did not want to get involved in the war. So, a lot of times there's a famous, and it's mentioned in The Darkest Hour, how they had to use horses to get American-bought supplies across the Canadian border. Because, again, at the time, Canada is a part of England. So they would leave them on the Canadian border, and then the British would send soldiers across with carriages and pull the supplies across. So technically, the Americans weren't involved. It's, we found these and we brought them over. And then finally, kiss my cousins. FDR and Teddy had a very, FDR and Winston had a very good relationship. A lot of people think it's because Winston didn't want to upset the Americans because he needed their help. There's pictures of Winston holding Tommy guns and things like that. The very American technology. We supplied them with many tanks, many weapons. So it's I'm not saying that that's what Churchill was doing, but it kind of was. He was looking out for England's best interest, and even in his darkest hour speech, he would say, when the new world would come to the rescue of the old, hoping that the Americans would finally come through and save England and France and all these countries that were being defeated by the Germans. Very good rebuttal. I think Teddy was a little stronger, but TR, I mean, let's keep going.
I don't think it's very fair for a British bulldog to melee with a teddy bear. You're no man, you're an overgrown Boy Scout. I should stuff you in a pram just so you can throw your toys out. They put your fat head on a mountain to save face, but if Rushmore was a band, then you play bass. Look at Roosevelt, the dude's about to lose the bout to Churchill. If a bullet to the chest won't stop you, my word.
Okay, that's a good one. That's good. So, like I said before, Teddy hated being called Teddy. That's why I've been trying to refer to him the best as TR. You know, you grow up on Long Island, you just call him Teddy. But he actually hated that because there's a story that he was hunting and he refused to shoot a baby bear, a cub, and after that, all these factories started making what were called teddy bears. That's where the term comes from. But he hated it. But then you had someone like Churchill, who was referred to as a bulldog. You know, there's actually a lot of British propaganda from World War II of Churchill's head on a bulldog. People called him the old bulldog. Another common nickname was the last lion. But he was often referred to as a bulldog. Also, he refers to Teddy being an overgrown Boy Scout. Theodore Roosevelt was actually a frontrunner in creating the Boy Scouts of America. He thought it was the greatest idea coming from England, actually, from Lord Baden-Powell in Great Britain. So he was a big supporter of that and supporting youth, you know, training, learning outside activities, and things like that. Then he shoots at the fact that TR is on Mount Rushmore. Mount Rushmore was it was a celebration of who were considered the greatest Americans. So at the time, Theodore was, and honestly should still be, it's something lost to history, is the influence that Theodore Roosevelt did have on America. And it was a good influence. He did so much for this country that I live in. And, you know, he created so many organizations. He started standing up for the little man against big business. So it's a little harsh to say he didn't deserve to be on Mount Rushmore, but by a modern perspective, it's very understandable why a lot of people would think, you know, he plays bass for the band. And then finally, we hit the assassination. I actually have a video on the assassination attempt on Theodore Roosevelt. What happened was a man came forward from a crowd. He was a little bit of a mentally disturbed individual, and he shot the president. And I'll let the song keep playing because it plays a little more into what actually happened. But it was a failed attempt. He did survive, but I will let Theodore continue it.
That's well. A bullet can't stop the bull moose. TR will give WC the full deuce. Whatever shit you throw at me, I'll just return to sender. I'll battle to the end, and I will never surrender.
Hold wall. Poster.
All right. So so after Theodore got shot, he actually he had a 50-page speech in his pocket along with his eyeglass case. So the bullet hit those first and then lodged itself between his ribs. The reality was he actually was so muscular that his muscles had slowed it down, and when he went to the hospital hours after the assassination, they decided to keep it in him. So he lived with it in him his entire life. But also, he gave this speech right after he was shot, like immediately after. He didn't go to the hospital first. He went and gave his speech, and he actually said, "A bullet can't stop a bull moose," referencing his party that he had created to oppose the Republicans and the Democrats, called the Bull Moose Party. So after getting shot, he said, "Ladies and gentlemen, I don't know if you're all informed, but I have just been shot, and a bullet can't stop a bull moose." So you know, it was funny. And then you, of course, have at the end that I will never surrender. That's referencing the famous Darkest Hour speech that we will never surrender. I'm going to give this to Teddy. I'm a little biased, though, so feel free to attack me over that. I'm going to always root for Teddy. I think he gave much better attacks. You know, he gave substance and attacks is the best way to put it. Tell me what you think. Thank you so much for joining us. If you have any comments, any disagreements, please comment down below. Again, I don't own rights to these videos. I will leave the references, the comments, everything in the links below. Thank you for joining us. If you enjoyed, please like, share, and comment. And if you're new to the channel, please like and subscribe. I like to do these reviews. It's very enjoyable. And if there's nothing else, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you in the next one.